Vintage Ace here with my boy Kevin. Raw just went off air, and we're here to give you the roundup. Starting off Raw, we had the Mosh Pit Mixed Tag Lumberjack match for the 24/7 Championship.
It was fucking rubbish, wasn't it?
It wasn't what I expected it to be. I mean, it is, but R-Truth and Carmella got the win, is what I did expect. At the end of it, we had all of the Lumberjacks run into the ring, attack R-Truth, and Mike Kanellis came out on top of the 24/7 championship. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Who is this for? Like, alright, well, I'm mostly getting into what happened next, I guess. Like, the match was whatever. It's your typical 24/7 affair. Fucking, you don't get real quality matchups or anything. You just get the hijinks, and I guess it's entertaining.
It's like the hardcore championship minus the hardcore.
Yeah, it's not wrestling. It's just a bunch of gimmicks, but that's what we've come to expect with WWE. It was fucking it's short and sweet. Didn't take up much time. Can't really complain.
That's what I liked about it. Was like if the match would have went on for way too long, it would have just been way too much. It literally took up maybe the first 6 minutes of the show. It was a good way to open, I would say.
And you got a nice mix of stories here. You got the R-Truth Drake Maverick thing that keeps going on. That'll probably continue, even though the 24/7 title isn't currently being carried by that feud at the moment. Truth will happen in another week or so. He's like a 12-time champion by now. It's his belt. But anyway, the big story here, your cuck champion Mike Kanellis holds the belt for all of 3 minutes before handing it to his pregnant wife, who is now going to be the 24/7 champion until
she gives birth.
Basically, unless we want to do another miscarriage angle,
where Snitsky kicks the baby into the crowd.
So unless we get a Snitsky return, Maria Kanellis is probably holding on to that belt for a while.
At least 9 months.
At least 9 months.
So, leading into another segment after the commercial break, what caught Kevin and I off guard was Maria Kanellis was knocking on the door of the locker room, and she was like, "Open the fucking door or I'm gonna kick you in the vagina." And we both were like, well, what the fuck was that? Is she really saying that on a PG network?
You can say vagina on air now. The kids don't care. There's no kids watching anymore. You gotta understand that the only people watching these shows now are the core audience. And because of that, they're trying to edge it up, because I think that's how they're gonna get people to watch again, is by edging it up, because they realize, whatever, this family shit. Maybe it's not the way to go anymore, but you still got Rollins cutting these babyface Cena promos from like 2006. So it's a little ass backwards. You say vagina on TV, it doesn't really fix anything. I don't know. I'm still intrigued by what's happening with the Kanelli family, and I'm hoping something comes out of it for Mike Kanellis, because man's a hard worker. He loves his job. He's shown that he'll do literally anything to be on TV. You gotta respect the man. I just hope something comes out of the ordeal.
I would say starting Raw off like that, it started off good. The first hour, I wouldn't say followed through.
I mean, the first hour was just treading water, basically. I mean, there was that, which was like, okay, you have my attention. This was a bunch of wacky bullshit, which, I don't care. At this point, that's what I've come to expect. So, I can't be disappointed when that shows up. And then we transition into your gauntlet match, which seems to be the WWE's favorite way of finding number one contenders these days. You just book them against everyone else in the fucking
what I don't understand that the WWE is doing right now is so they scrapped the rematch clause.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, fans are sick of the same rivalry, blah, blah, blah. Let's find ourselves a new number one contender when the title changes. So in this gauntlet match, we had Rey Mysterio, Cesaro, Andrade. We had the former United States champion Ricochet and Sami Zayn.
All right, there you go.
So it started off with Rey Mysterio and Cesaro, which 100% if they gave us a singles match between those two, take my fucking money. I mean, the two definitely blew fucking all expectations.
I mean, you got probably the two most unique styles you got on either show right now, clashing. And they're both competent workers. They've showed it time and time again. They put on match of the night easily, probably be the match of the week. And then, but of course, then you have your finish, where
yeah, that didn't really make any sense because like, Cesaro.
Right, well, here's what happens. So Mysterio hits a bulldog off the top rope, and Cesaro crawls from one side of the ring, on top of the middle rope to the other side of the ring, and just sort of stays there until he's inevitably hit with the 619 and pinned.
Yeah, that kind of killed it for me. And then you immediately had Sami Zayn come out. He attacked Rey Mysterio. The bell rang. He went for a haluva kick, and Rey botched the roll up. Sami Zayn still went after Rey Mysterio. The roll up was continued, and Sami Zayn was eliminated.
Just a series of unfortunate botches here, making everyone sort of look like a goober in the process.
Which, right now, everybody's like, oh, it's Sami Zayn, like, that's what he does, like, whatever, it's fucking Sami Zayn, he's a jobber. But if you take it back to when he was brought up from NXT, everybody was behind the guy. If this would have happened when he was brought up, so many people would have been pissed.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know. I guess Cesaro looks... He looks good here for putting on a good match. Sort of looks like a fool for that wonky finish. Sami Zayn most certainly doesn't look good.
No.
Mysterio looks fine, but he doesn't really need it. You know they don't really have plans for him right now, unless they follow through with what happens in your next match here.
Which it led to Andrade Cien Almas, or Andrade now, coming out, taking on Rey Mysterio. To cut it short, it was a typical Andrade versus Rey Mysterio match.
No, there's nothing bad to be said about it, of course. It's just, you know, you go to the well too many times, there's only so much you can do.
Exactly. And Andrade Cien Almas hits his finisher, gets the 1-2-3. Out comes Ricochet. And this was my problem with the gauntlet, is you scrap your rematch clause, you're trying to find a new number one contender. And then you have Ricochet, who was our last United States champion. He lost to AJ Styles at Extreme Rules. And Ricochet wins the entire thing. And what I'm not understanding is why scrap the championship clause and then have the former champion win the number one contenders match.
Well, it's this new thing that WWE is doing, is they're putting up this guise that they're trying to be fresh and relevant and trying to reinvent themselves, you know, for the newer audience that just wants something new, get over all this tired crap that they've been doing for the past 6 to 10 years, and then they just keep doing the same old shit. I mean, you saw it with there's their new clause where they don't put, what was it? That they wouldn't wrestle during the break, which they held up for about 2 weeks before they fucking gave up on it because they realized that people already noticed that they weren't following through with their promises and they were just booking Gauntlet 2 out of 3 falls in fucking 2-minute matches over and over again.
Or you get those like one-on-one matches that all of a sudden end in disqualification. Out comes their allies, and we cut to commercial break. When you come back from commercial break, all of a sudden it's a 6-man tag.
Yeah.
And it's like,
we're being told that they're doing something new, and then you come out here, it's fucking something different. Like, fuck, I botched my own sentence here. That's the booking's getting to be bad. Anyway, you get this illusion that they're gonna do something new, and then they give you a fucking gauntlet match, as if you're going to forget that Ricochet
was our former United States champion.
Got a title match. Like what? Like 2 weeks ago he was United States champion. He already lost it. And now he's getting another shot. Getting a rematch immediately. I mean,
I'm not shitting on Ricochet. I like Ricochet. He's a great athlete. But it was the booking process that I had a problem with. Because I know Ricochet and AJ Styles will put on a great match at SummerSlam. They put on a great match at Extreme Rules. And it's all of a matter of how they book up until SummerSlam. And with SummerSlam being a week away on Sunday, they literally have one episode of Monday Night Raw to get us intrigued into this Ricochet and AJ Styles rivalry. And like, the good thing about it is we have the club back, who are now the OC, and I'm invested into that. We'll go more into the OC in a minute.
Oh, they're all over the show. Don't even worry about it.
Alright, so next we had a moment of bliss.
Alright, well, this was another thing that sort of just, like, kept going on during the show that probably shouldn't have. They're doing this thing, they have Becky putting her hands on a lot of pies right now. She's fucking with Bliss and, Nikki Cross still, and her rivalry with Natty is sort of happening, I guess.
Which, so, what they were talking about during a moment of bliss was Fit Finlay was teaching Natalya how to reverse the disarmer into a sharpshooter, and then Becky Lynch comes out and attacks Fit Finlay and puts Natalya in the disarmer. And I like that they're trying to involve outside of, like, so like before the shows or after the shows, they're starting to do things like that.
I mean, what this era is sort of about is trying to incorporate the outside world into the product. Which, if you can do it right, I don't really have a problem with. It works in this feud because, I mean, obviously, what the hell else are you gonna have to cause a beef between Natalya and Becky Lynch? You might as well bring in.
How this all tied in though is you'll hear it all throughout the show if you decide to watch all 3 hours of it.
Please don't.
So how this all started was Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross were saying it's disgusting, disrespectful for what Dolph Ziggler did to Shawn Michaels last Tuesday on SmackDown Live. I thought it was brilliant, not gonna lie.
We'll talk about it later. It is addressed again during this show, of course.
So we will get more in depth with that in a moment. But that was the segment for a moment of bliss. At the end of it, you see Becky Lynch on the Titantron saying, "Oh, Alexa Bliss, don't turn around so quickly. I hope you don't get injured." Shut up, Alexa.
Sick.
Fucking Amazon.
Anyway, the storyline here is Alexa Bliss faking injuries and Becky Lynch calling her out on it.
This was all before their match. What I would have preferred was they did the moment of Bliss segment, and then it immediately went into Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss. But that wasn't the case.
It just ended up taking too much time.
It did. And what they could have done was, rather than do it within 2 segments, they could have done it all in one, been done and over with, and we could have gone on with the show.
Well, you know that they want this Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch thing to be going on for some time, because they don't really have anyone else on Raw to be building up right now, because the Lacey Evans thing sort of fell apart. And Natalya, I'm sure they don't plan on keeping around in the women's main event scene for very long.
Call me an idiot, but with it, well, I won't say the stipulation right now, because that comes later on, but I wouldn't be surprised if Natalya won the title. 2 years ago at SummerSlam, Natalya got an opportunity at the SmackDown Live Women's Championship when Naomi had the title. And everybody was like, oh, it's just, Naomi's going to beat Natalya, so that she can get over more. Natalya's a veteran, blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't the case. Natalya won the title, and so on happened after that. With the way things are going with Becky Lynch right now, things were great before WrestleMania. After WrestleMania, sort of like the Seth Rollins thing, it sort of just fell apart. Fans, don't get me wrong, there's still fans behind her, but in my opinion, the man gimmick isn't it for me. If you bring Becky Lynch back to the last kicker, then I'll 100% be more invested into Becky Lynch again.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's they're continuing to try to do this defiant, ass-kicking, badass rebel with her, that sort of gimmick, but there's no one to be defiant against because she's like the only main event level talent on Raw right now. Back when she was feuding with Charlotte and Ronda Rousey, she was the underdog, so it made sense for her to be sneak attacking people and taking every opportunity she could get to scrap and get to the top. Well, now that she's on the top, it doesn't make any sense anymore. Because, sure, there's this... She attacks whoever she wants, she does whatever she wants, but she doesn't really have to anymore. Because there's no one who could step up to the plate and challenge her.
She's already at the top, and she's acting like she's at the bottom fighting towards the top again.
She's acting like some scrappy, up-and-coming underdog, and she's the champion. It just doesn't... It seems ass backwards. Right. It's not helping anybody.
But enough of that, because we have to get right back into it in about 5 minutes. So, next segment was...
Well, you got your 3-corner tag match
between the Revival, your WWE Raw Tag Team Champions, taking on the Jailmates and OC. And here, I made the joke during the show. The last time Jimmy Uso had his first DUI, they won the SmackDown Live Tag Team titles right after. So I looked at my boy Kevin and I was like, wouldn't surprise me if the Usos win the titles. Because, you get rewarded for DUIs.
The WWE loves their criminals, especially if they're the Samoan variety.
And all throughout this, I wouldn't complain about this match. It was back and forth. But once again, it went on for way too long.
Yeah, the story on the show seems to be trying to fill in as much time as possible. I mean, you got your continuous storylines here on tonight's show, and they all sort of tied together, which is fine. You got your 24/7 hijinks, which is going on around your. Let me start over. Yeah, your 24/7 hijinks. You got your Seth Rollins doing whatever the hell he's doing. The OC's all over the place on this show. You got... Jesus Christ, can't even remember. It just dragged on. I mean, you can really benefit from tying all the stories together. It usually keeps you engaged. But like when it just sort of drags on like this, I don't know.
But the match was good. Couldn't complain about it. At the end of the night, we have new Raw Tag Team Champions in the OC. I don't really have a problem with this. It seems like the trios of the company, the OC and the New Day, are on top.
I mean, whatever. It's not like they were doing anything with the tag division at the moment anyway. You can only go up from where they were. It's not a decision I can disagree with. The OC is the most relevant team you have.
Same with the New Day. That's why it doesn't like bother me that they did this. I love the Revival. If they would have retained once again, I wouldn't be complaining. I love the Usos. In this match, whoever won, I wouldn't complain.
Fact of the matter is, I mean, your tag divisions are sort of just lying dormant, not really doing anything. Same with your women's division, really. That's why you have to keep throwing the same people in over and over again. The only difference here is the club has been christened with a new gimmick. They got a fresh coat of paint, and they won the belts. It seems to be what happens every time someone wins the Raw Tag Team Championships. They get a fresh coat of paint, they win the belts, they become irrelevant, they lose to someone else who has a fresh coat of paint. It happened with your major brothers, happened with the Revival, and if this OC thing goes off without a hitch, I'm predicting it'll go on for at least until Survivor Series.
Yeah, no. Like, I'm hoping what they're doing right now is trying to revamp, I guess, their tag division. And the only way to do that is to take your top stars and make them even bigger than what they are. So you have AJ Styles, who is running Raw's mid-card. And he's main event caliber. Mm-hmm. So it takes your mid-card right now, and it makes it bigger than what it was. Although AJ Styles should be like in the Universal title scene, or in a rivalry with people like, not saying this should happen again, but like Roman Reigns, like he's in that kind of caliber.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that style of booking, but what you got here is the divisions aren't really established anymore. Like, if you look at the Attitude Era, you got people like, I don't know, you got your D'Lo Browns, you got your Alberts, you got your Tests. They're all hanging out in the mid-card division, and you don't ever see them get a world title shot. And if you see someone like Stone Cold or Triple H winning the IC title, it's only before they win the world title, and then when they win the world title, they never go back and step back down.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore because the WWE is struggling to keep their mid-card divisions relevant, so they're always throwing down your upper-level guys down to toil on the mid-card, and then all the guys who are regular mid-carders are just blatantly irrelevant now because they're just losing to people who should be main eventers, and they're all getting buried in the process.
I can agree with you there. But like the way I see, Vince, he's like, everybody's like, Triple H should be running the company, this, that, and the other thing. I'm in between that right now. Because Vince has been running this thing for so long. What I agree with Triple H running the company is you get a fresh feel of WWE. But with Vince running it, he's not a dumb guy. What he's failing to do, though, is make the rivalries relevant. And he's got a great mindset when it comes to it, because he's taking your top guy who was on SmackDown, running the show for what, 3 years,
Basically, on and off.
and he is now your mid-card United States champion. So you can take someone like Ricochet, who, you know, maybe someday he could win like Money in the Bank, win the world title or something like that. He's one of those guys. And you can see that. He's like your Daniel Bryans, your Sami Zayn, Andrade. You know, people like that. You take Ricochet, he drops the title to the star that's exactly what I just said, is a star. Ricochet, he hasn't developed into a star yet. So he drops the title to AJ Styles. At SummerSlam, I'm putting my money on Ricochet. They're trying to develop Ricochet into a star, so that he can make the mid-card relevant, and then AJ Styles can move on to bigger and better things with him. Which I think is what Vince is trying to do, but isn't exactly storytelling it correctly.
Well, I could see trying to elevate Ricochet. You got a big talent on your hands there, and I see making AJ Styles the guy to do it. And if you have to throw the U.S. title on him to do so, then fine. I just don't see, because they also have AJ Styles reveled in this OC thing right now. So they got AJ Styles just sort of, they're relying on him to put everybody in the mid-card over, everybody in other division, put them all over. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's worse things AJ could be doing right now, but I think it's just a tired strategy of trying to make everyone look good by putting someone better than them around them. And it hasn't been working. I mean, he hasn't rubbed off on the club. I certainly don't care about them more now that they're with AJ. I just care about AJ.
Yeah. But on to the next one.
We got another.
We got the highlight of the night. So, the OC, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows won the tag titles. We cut to commercial break, whatever. And when we come back from commercial break, we get this awesome 20-second segment of AJ Styles setting up a celebration for the OC. Because, you know, they're holding all the gold in WWE right now. And the OC walks out back, they get an interview, whatever. And then all of a sudden, AJ Styles hops on the table, throws himself around a little bit, and that was the end of it. Best part of Raw.
I mean, basically, it just felt the most empty segment. I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Everything was sort of tired. Just getting to see somebody excited to be doing what they're doing was a nice, refreshing change.
It was. After that, it like stayed neutral. I wouldn't say there was any like downhill moments of the show. It sort of stayed neutral until the last hour, which is different than what it usually is. Usually you have the beginning where it's like, all right, people are intrigued, like, and then you get to the third hour and everybody's just exhausted and they're sick of it and they shut off their TV, and then all of a sudden their ratings go down. But tonight it was a bit different. It all had this one motion, straightforward, and then we hit the third hour, and in my opinion it went up from there.
Well, before we get there, we had the return of the Becky Alexa Bliss stuff from earlier, where they has a match. Alexa Bliss fakes an injury. Match ends. We have an impromptu match with Nikki Cross. Becky wins.
I can't find the song's face and injury ends if we have an impromptu match at the Cross.
I hate you, Alexa.
Nikki Cross loses. Alexa Bliss reveals she's really fine. Jumps Becky. Gets jabronied. Natty comes out. Sharpshooter.
And once again, it's just a back and forth.
this is what we've been doing in the women's division. People jump each other, stipulations determined, have a match at the pay-per-view. Someone wins, then someone comes out, cuts a promo, someone jumps them, back and forth. It's just the same cycle over and over again with this women's division.
What I didn't understand, once again, this made no sense. After the Nikki Cross and Becky Lynch match, and the sharpshooters locked in, we cut to another commercial break because, you know, that's what WWE loves to do. They gotta make their money. But we come back from commercial break, and we get a Natalia promo where she's like, if Becky Lynch is really the man, then she'll face me in a submission match at SummerSlam in Toronto. And then she's like, but I'm not going to lay down that challenge because Becky isn't man enough. And I was like, why are you mentioning it if you're just going to follow it up with...
Well, it's going to happen. It's just this new thing.
It was the delivery that was wrong.
It's this new thing that the WWE's doing where they'll mention something's going to happen, and then they'll keep fucking grinding their tires in the dirt for like 3 weeks, and then they'll deliver. It's just stalling for time because like we're in this transition period where they don't really know what they're doing right now. So they're just trying to buy for time as much as possible. And it's whatever. It was all over this show. You could see it. They told the same 3 story for like 3 hours without really making a whole heck of a deal of progress. And it is what it is. But like you said, we then get into the 3rd hour, and things sort of picked up.
At first, it looked like it wasn't going to. We had, what was it? It was Ziggler versus Seth Rollins, and this all leads back to, you know, the topic of the night. What Ziggler did to Shawn Michaels on SmackDown was disrespectful and just so not right, because it's not like this is the WWE or something.
You know what? It's whatever. They always return to this well of the legends run the company, and if you disrespect the legends, then you're the biggest heel on the planet. And it's whatever. Seth Rollins was not involved in the story whatsoever. Miz wasn't even on the show, the guy who like initiated this entire storyline. But Rollins was. It's his deal now because apparently he toes the company line, despite the fact that he's, I don't know, terrible at it. He insists on being in every segment and every show.
But the match, it was good. It didn't have a decisive winner. At the end of it all, Brock Lesnar comes out. Seth Rollins looks up towards the stage, and Ziggler grabs his leg. Brock gets into the ring, gives him one of the meat hook Ryback clothesline, and it all went up from there. Loved it.
I mean, best part of the night, honestly, was just Seth taking 8 different brutal F5s.
The first one, Brock picks him up on the outside, F5s him into the ring post, grabs a steel chair, sets it up in the ring. Brock picks him up, gives him an F5 on the steel chair, picks him up again, gives him another one. He goes to leave the ring. The fans, of course, you know, are chanting, "One more time, one more time."
They love to watch people get actually murdered.
They love to see their, you know, typical babyface that they're behind get the hell beat out of them. But when they lose, it's, oh, why the fuck is a part-timer our Universal Champion? We're never gonna see the Universal title again. And like, that's what I don't get about the fans these days, is they say they have a favorite, but they don't. They're not behind that person. I've been behind Dolph Ziggler since however long he's been in the company. You can ask Kevin Clark. Whenever I see someone and I see talent in them, I'm behind them. And when I see them fail, I don't jump ships. I stick behind the person because I know that eventually something will be done with them. With Dolph Ziggler, do I ever see him winning the WWE title? Unfortunately not. Great talent. Misused, unfortunately. And fans these days, they're like, oh, Seth Rollins is my favorite, but he gets the shit kicked out of him by the heel in the situation, and they're cheering the heel. But on other terms, Brock gives him another F5 on the chair. Seth is bleeding out of his mouth, he's gagging, whatever. Brock takes off up the stage. And once again, we cut to commercial break. And when we come back, we get a segment where Seth Rollins is being strolled into an ambulance. And out of fucking nowhere, it's like the OC jumps the Usos. And that was quite confusing for me. And then Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe gets involved, Roman Reigns gets involved, and we're supposed to have this Samoan Summit segment to end the show, which
it's never really explained what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't happen, so I guess it doesn't fucking matter.
So that all happens, blah blah blah. The camera cuts back to the ambulance as if nobody got jumped or anything like that, and fucking the medic taps the back of the meat wagon, and all of a sudden the ambulance comes to a halt with Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman in front of it. Brock Lesnar goes towards the back of the ambulance, pulls Seth Rollins out. He did a little skirt, and Brock pulls him off of the stretcher. F5s him on the stretcher, and that was about it to that segment.
Yeah, I mean, what you got here is your typical Brock Lesnar storyline, where he beats the shit out of the guy, and then they have the pay-per-view match, and that's the whole story.
I loved the segment. I thought it was good for the last hour of Raw. Brock Lesnar was on the show. He's been on the show for a little while now. And it's sort of like taking what people are saying about Brock being Universal Champion, and the tides have turned.
I don't know. I guess it's just... We've seen this a million times, but it works because it's what Brock does best. Is just go out there and beat the shit out of people. And for no explained reason, it's just entertaining every time he does it. And Rollins sells like a motherfucker. So, I mean, what you got here is the perfect storm. I don't know who the fuck's gonna win at the pay-per-view, or where the fuck we go from here. But to me, it almost doesn't matter, because the company seems to be booking short-term. So I'm trying to keep like a short-term type mindset on this.
I'm not gonna hate on SummerSlam. I'm gonna wait, see how it goes. You guys will get a review on that. Right now, the build-up, with it being 2 weeks away, the WWE has no idea what they're doing right now. And that's my only problem with it. Back in the day, you had these storylines where it'd be like 4 weeks straight of non-stop build-up, and then you have these great matches at the pay-per-view. Not saying the matches that they put on aren't great, because they are. But sometimes it's about storytelling. And right now, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins is the feud of WWE right now. It's like their major feud. It's got the most storytelling behind it. The two can put on a great match together if you go and rewatch their match at Battleground. WrestleMania was sort of a letdown, but it all leads to something.
That's the idea, yeah.
So, after all of this chaos happens, after we get back from commercial break again, we have Samoa Joe coming out to the ring, says the Samoan Summit is canceled. He's not here to confront anybody, he's here to fight.
Minutes before he gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
So this quickly turns into a flustercuck. And everyone who was involved in the brawl earlier, in addition to Drew McIntyre and Cedric Alexander, we're also having a micro feud. It's just a series of micro feuds, which I don't know how many of them are going to be represented at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
But it's this big ass brawl.
I will say, I am behind Cedric Alexander right now.
I just think they need to represent more underused talent. And
They
if
do.
Cedric Alexander is the person they're going to go with, by all means, I have no problem with it. Should he be beating Drew McIntyre? I don't know yet. We'll see how it goes, but
The Drew McIntyre and Cedric Alexander feud, what I like about it is it reminds me of back when it was like 2009, 2010. You had Chris Jericho, he had just barely lost his Intercontinental title. And then the following night on Raw, you had Chris Jericho, just going on in his promo, and then you had this underdog, Evan Bourne, come out, and he upset Chris Jericho. Sort of like you saw a couple weeks ago on Raw. Cedric Alexander upset Drew McIntyre. The following week, Drew McIntyre just completely obliterated him. And they're not just leaving it at that. They're going to continue with the feud. It's all about how they utilize the superstars in this.
well, the problem here is WWE has been trying to book all this. Like the rivalries have all been match based, and all of their storytelling seems to be like who's the better athlete or whatever. And then you have these people come out of the woodwork that haven't been on TV in like, what has it been, like 6 months longer since Cedric was Cruiserweight champion.
Yeah, Cedric Alexander, on 205 Live, he did his thing. And then he was called up to Raw. And we went through that gap where they called up a bunch of people. It's still happening with people like Buddy Murphy on SmackDown Live, where they weren't used. So there was really no reason for them to be called up. Cedric Alexander, Buddy Murphy, they could have been doing things down in 205 Live for the remainder of the time until they had something that they could do with them.
Yeah, and then they just sort of come up out of nowhere and beat these guys who should be in the world title scene right now.
Like Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, it's sort of what I've been saying, what I was saying earlier, with like the divisions are all messed up, and they just sort of throw together two guys and they're like, all right, we're gonna have a program where there's no real story, but we need you to have a match for the pay-per-view, and then it happens. And then it either keeps happening, or they throw together some other short-term thing with no real story going on other than, I think I'm better than you. And that works great for something like New Japan, where match quality is their priority, and that's what they're trying to get across, is, match quality, and none of their wrestlers will try to proclaim anything other than, I deserve to have the belt because I'm the best one here. And that works. Because that's what it's about, and they don't claim to be anything else. This is supposed to be entertainment above wrestling, which they stress as their... It's their motto or whatever.
It's their program now.
Yeah. That doesn't... the message doesn't really get across if you watch the product. They act like they want all this work rate to be such a big deal. And like guys like Rollins are on the top because they're such good workers. And then you look at the people who you would suspect to be up there with Rollins, like Joe, Cesaro's, your Ricochets, or AJ Styles, and they're just sort of hanging out, fighting whoever week after week. And it's all just confused. It doesn't make any sense. There's no logic. There's no continuity to it.
That was my only problem with this final segment of Raw was they took all of their small rivalries and they put it all into one, when they all should be individual. Granted, I understand what they're trying to do again, is give everybody their time on the show. Because, you know, sometimes you have these rivalries come up, sort of like the Andrade and Apollo Crews rivalry, where they were like, oh, this is going to be our rivalry now, and then a month later the match finally happens. But within that month, there was no build-up. There was nothing said between the two. Unfortunately, one of Andrade's relatives had passed away, and that's why it didn't really go anywhere. But other than that, there's been several other rivalries like that. So I appreciate that they're trying to get all of the rivalries on the show.
I don't know. I just feel like if you're not going to make any progress with it, why bother? Why bother putting it front and center? I mean, there's plenty of people who didn't show up this week who they've been doing stuff with. Like Bobby Lashley wasn't there.
One thing I will say is WWE, Vince McMahon, Triple H, Shane McMahon, Stephanie, the whole 9 yards, they do listen to their fans. People are complaining about how Shane McMahon gets way too much screen time. We didn't see him a single time throughout this episode.
I don't even know if anyone mentioned him.
Not at all. But you have Drew McIntyre, who's tied up in the Shane McMahon rivalry, who's also tied up in the Cedric Alexander rivalry, who just randomly attacked Roman Reigns during this segment to help Samoa Joe. And then out comes Cedric Alexander, like we had said. And then all of a sudden, out comes the Usos. And then you have this brawl on the stage, and out comes the Usos. No. Out comes OC, sorry.
Yeah.
And Cedric Alexander gets pushed away from the setup, and he climbs the stage and does this big jump off of it onto everybody. The action's taken back to the ring, yada yada yada. It ends up with a Superman punch, a spear, and the show comes to an end.
I don't know. I feel like I've been complaining all these years that they keep all their talent in like this one-track mind scenario where they only feud with one person for like 6 months and then they just immediately just don't care and change their mindset. And that's not really the case right now. In fact, I think we have the opposite extreme as a problem where everyone's sort of feuding with everyone, and like there's no traction, and like there's no main feuds or anything, and like I don't know. I barely know what matches we're getting at the pay-per-view, and I can barely care about them because I've seen Drew McIntyre feud with like 8 different people in the course of a week.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't make a difference to me if he faces Roman Reigns or Cedric Alexander or whoever the hell he's going to be facing, if he's even at the pay-per-view. Because like I don't know what's going on with him. He's just attacking people.
Exactly. But this is our opinion. Everybody else is going to have their own. In my opinion, Kevin, you might have a different opinion. With the way Raw was booked tonight, although it was a bit of a cluster, I wouldn't say it was a bad show. It was, like I had said earlier on, it stayed sort of at a neutral pace throughout the first and second hour, and then it picked up during the third. And then it, for the first time in a long time, it left me thinking like, well, what the fuck are they going to do next week? Rather than you know, we have our first 2 hours where we're like, all right, you know, this is wrestling again. And then the third hour leaves you exhausted, you shut off the TV, and you're not looking forward to next week.
I guess they're building up to something. I just would have preferred this is the sort of show they would have done 2 weeks ago and keep building up to a fever pitch before SummerSlam
Yeah.
instead of having one episode left before what is arguably your second biggest pay-per-view of the year. But you know, we'll see what they do. They could surprise me. I mean, the Lesnar Rollins stuff is all right. I don't see it being a title-changing feud,
No.
but
And I don't look at Brock Lesnar as a placeholder. He doesn't get a title and then immediately lose it. Which is why at SummerSlam, I don't see Brock Lesnar losing the title.
well, you got this Brock Lesnar syndrome though. It's like, who the hell is next to step up to the plate if not Rollins? Roman Reigns. It's the same three guys over and over again.
But at the end of the day, Raw, it wasn't terrible. They're making some improvements. You know, we're not going to go from something that was awful to perfection.
I mean, we're spinning our wheels here, changing a little at a time, little by little. Eventually, they're going to be in a place where they're comfortable enough
Yeah.
to make some sort of big improvements. But as for right now, they're sort of got everything on lockdown. They're keeping everything the same. And I don't know. I guess I'm okay with it for now. It's not the end of the world.
But alright, guys, if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow night, I'll be doing a SmackDown Live review. It'll be going up at some point throughout the night or early morning Wednesday. So yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one.
We're gonna have to